So today I've got a bit of a repair video. A friend of mine broke his USB capture card and he sent it to Wavid DJats, hilarious. So we're going to try and fix it. So let's give it a go. Now I think all he's done is break the USB off, so we'll find out. So here we go. What kind of a state is it in? I'm hoping it's just a solder job. Okay, that's everything. So it's one of these. I've got one actually. I'm going to come a bit closer. We'll look at it properly. That looks to be in focus. So it's one of these things. These are super cheap on eBay. I'll find a link and pop it in the description on, wherever I'll find something. It will be one of those evil affiliate links though. So yeah, just a USB capture card. It takes HDMI in. Gosh, I should have put this on autofocus. HDMI in, and then it's just, I think that's USB 2, is it? Does it say on here? It doesn't. I think it's USB 2 though. Although this blue connector here on this one appears to be USB 3. And I say it appears to be because it has a lot of connections on the bottom here, much more than you would find on a standard USB. So maybe I should have a look at this one. This one does have the blue, which is sort of a standard indicator for USB 3. So maybe his is better than mine. Interesting. Don't worry, you'll get your blue one back if you're watching this. So let's focus back. There we go. It looks like this has just ripped the pads off, which should be fairly easy to fix. Now, in terms of how strong it is, it looks like perhaps the solder just didn't hook on to these pins, or they've snapped off. Oh, let's have a little look at this. You can see where it's sort of bent, so let's pop it back on. So it's bent out, look. We don't need to bend that back. I don't want to stress anything any more than it already has been, so it will just remain a bit bent, but we'll solder it back in. So those channels there, looks like the solder didn't really wick up. So not super strong, but we can make that good. The connections, while tiny, look fairly easy. I mean, I could just drag solder that, I think, although I haven't soldered anything for a while. So hopefully I can manage it. And then we'll test it out and I'll show you how they work. If this one doesn't work because it's somehow damaged in some other way, then I'll just try it with my own one. Well, it took a lot longer than I expected to find all the necessary bits. In fact, I'll give you a little view of what my room looks like right now. So I no longer have the workshop, but I am currently living out of boxes. Everything needs to be sorted here. So rewiring, replastering, new kitchen, new bathroom, basically everything. So we're just going to do it in a fairly simple way. I mean, I've got all the required bits. I've got some solder. I've got my soldering iron over there, some desoldering braid or wick, solder wick. That should be enough to be able to do this, I think. I do hope the electrical connections in this house are good enough to deal with the two big lights that I've got on and the soldering iron and whatever else is on this ring. I'm sure it'll be fine. But this house has not been had the wiring looked at since possibly the 60s, so quite a long time. What we're going to do first is we're going to just pop a little bit of flux on it. I say a little bit, I always go overboard, but we'll pop some flux on. I'm going to take all of the existing solder off, or at least as much as possible, with the soldering iron. And some desoldering braid. Oops, I'm going to hit the camera a little bit because this cable's wrapped around. There we go. Hopefully it doesn't crackle on my microphone again like it always does. There we go. Gosh, I'm out of practice. I don't really think I've been doing any electronics for, gosh, maybe 6 months. Has that even worked? I think maybe I'll put some fresh solder on and then wick that off. The tip on this soldering iron feels a little loose to me. I think maybe it needs to be screwed on a bit. Yeah, a little bit. I have nothing to deal with that right now though. So we'll put some more flux on. I have put a lot of solder on there. More flux on, and then we'll just wick the rest of it off. Now the person who owns this does some streaming. I met him, he's on, well I haven't met him physically, but I met him on Twitch. He does some Twitch streaming. And during, oh, that's much better. Look, that looks much, much better. During the pandemic, I started watching Twitch, and I even did some Twitch streams. As you might have seen, I did that Twitch interactive game, which was loads of fun. Now, that looks good enough to me. The last bit is these two big bits on the back. We're going to take those off too. So first off, we'll add a little bit of flux, not flux, sorry, we'll add a little bit of extra solder, some fresh stuff, and we'll just chop this bit of desoldering braid off. And because there's quite a lot of solder there, I'm going to apply some flux to my wick as well as to the blobs. It won't make much of a difference, but you know, it's one of those things that you just like doing. You really like to get that out of the hole though. Might have to see if I can find the solder sucker. Yep, that's a solder sucker job, I think. Back in a second. All right, I found the solder sucker, so let's give this another go. What we'll do first, we're just going to put back some of that solder that we had in there in the first place. Because the solder sucker works better when it's got more to suck in. That should be okay, right. And, oops, sorry, that flew out of shot, but looks like it's done its job. And the last one, I'll let it heat up for a little bit, and then, not quite. A little bit more. We'll try that again. And just shoving it out of shot, let's try that again. Help if you pushed it down. Not doing overly well at this one. Maybe I should try it from the other side. No, there we go. That is good enough. Right, we've just got bits all over the place. I'm very messy. Right, now we'll just check the pins on here. I'll bring it up to you so you can see. We'll just check these for any kind of damage. It doesn't look like it to me. A lot of pins on there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lost count. That's 7, 8, 9. It seems like there should be 10, but might be 9 there, I'm not sure. Anyway, it doesn't look damaged at all, apart from being slightly bent. We could try and fix that, but I'm worried about breaking stuff, but let's just give it a go. No, I've done nothing there, but I don't want to do any more. So let's try and solder this thingy on. So we're going to start by sort of press fitting this USB into the PCB, flipping it over and soldering one of the supporting connections. That way, if it's wrong, or if the pins don't sort of align, if they're not laying flat, then we can adjust it afterwards. We don't want to go gung-ho and sort of solder the pins first. So you can see it's got a sort of a cutout here. Hopefully that matches with the depth of the PCB and the holes. So just push it in a little. I'm just not totally in, but are those pins flat? Let's have a little look. I'm going to use the camera here as kind of a microscope for myself, so hopefully you don't mind. Well, it looks like the pins are flat to me. And you can still see that bit of a bend in there, but it's all right. So let's solder one side of this. Hopefully we can see enough through that. And then to be sure that it's holding in correctly, we're going to solder this side too. But we'll get to that once we've done the pins and not before. So we're only going to do one side, and then we'll solder the pins, and then we'll solder the rest, making sure that everything is all aligned and there are no problems. We're not going to add a huge amount of solder. Should we use some... God, I just basically, if in doubt, always use a little bit of flux. You might as well. I mean, it's not going to hurt nothing. So, wish I could use this soldering iron in my other hand. That would be better. There we go. Now just hold that down. Bit of flux in there. The board has moved. I could feel that move, which means the pins have lifted up there. So we'll have to adjust that again. How annoying. Wow, this is not going to plan, but then I haven't done a video for such a long time that that's not surprising. So you can see there, the pins are slightly off the pads. It might not be a problem, but the USB is now straight. It's just because it was bent, I think. We should be able to bridge that gap, honestly. Should we just go for it? Right, now I'd have this in a vise or something, one of those PCB holders, but I can't find them. Well, okay, I could find them if I really tried, but I'm not going to try that hard. They're in a box somewhere, but they certainly weren't packed in the boxes that I thought were really important to have to hand straight away. Oh, this place, by the way, it has a cellar, which is pretty cool. I'd love to convert that into my workshop. It's a bit damp down there, though, mind, so probably not ideal for electronics. It also has a garden, which I'm very excited about. So, doing this wrong-handed, come on now. Well, wrong-handed for me, not necessarily for you. So let's see if we can solder these. Hopefully that'll stay where it is. If not, I can hunt in some boxes. Well, that one's soldered. That one is. Stop shaking, David. That one is. That's bridged. That's okay if it's bridged. I'm fine with that. In fact, I did say that I was just going to drag solder it, but I don't think I want to do that. Right, that is bridged, but that isn't necessarily a problem. So let's have a little look. We can fix bridged pins. That is okay. We'll just get a bit of wick on there and then we'll touch those connections up. It is absolutely not a problem. The USB is lifting up a little bit, but that's where it's bent and it's the only way the pins will go down. So I'll give it a visual inspection, but they actually look solidly soldered on there. Just a couple of bridges. So let's sort those out. Now there are 3 bridges here. I know you can't see them all. There's one sort of underneath. All we need to do, these sort of data pins and the power pin on there, they're not structural. We don't need to worry about them like holding super fast. We just need to worry about them being connected. The structural bit is on the outside of the PCB, which is the weak part. Or at least a weak part in this case. It shouldn't be the weak part always. So a bit more flux just to help this wick do its job, because I need it to get up into the top there. Once this is done, we'll then solder the structural bits. So we need a light touch here. There's only a few bits that need to be done. So we'll just come across like that, a little bit more there. And then I think we should just be able to pull those other ones out from the pins. Just drag it down a little. There we go, that looks done to me. That's about as close as I can get with this camera. Now there are some interesting features, mainly to do with my soldering. Now, you'll see the 2 pins over on this side where my thumb is. Now they look pretty clean. In fact, they almost look like they're not connected, but they are in different parts of the light, look. Whereas the others have quite large blobs on them. Now, if this were SMD soldered, as I said, these aren't structural connections, so those are probably fine. But to make them look similar to the other ones, I'm just going to run over it with a little bit more solder and hopefully not bridge it. But as you can see, there are no bridges left. They're all gone. And the other ones have ample solder on them, which I'm sure are connected. Fingers crossed. I'll just tidy that up, and then we'll do the structural connections on the USB. So we'll start with this one over here, which is the one we didn't solder. So big fat bit of flux in there, and then we're really going to flood these. In fact, I'm just going to chop a little bit of this solder off so I don't have to bring the reel the whole time. And then, without putting too much pressure on, because I don't know how strong this other one is, we're just going to fill this one with solder. Let it heat up. There we go. And now that one's done, we're just going to go over this one again. Let it heat up a bit. Okay, now we're going to do the other side, because the reason it broke off in the first place is because it wasn't very strong. And because the person just pulled the cable away without detaching the USB from their computer, which is clever. God, I've got very shaky hands today. I haven't eaten any food really. So clean our iron a little, blackened a bit there, and then we're just going to heat this up and then feed some solder in. Don't need an awful lot. It doesn't need to be super strong, this connection. It just needs to be a bit strong. It had no solder on this side before, so I think it's a good idea that it does. Clean the iron again. And then once more, we'll put our iron in and heat up the side of the component and the pad, and then feed our solder on. There we go. That's done. Let's see if it fits back into its little shell. It's blooming warm right now. Okay, it does. We'll reassemble that. We've just got a couple of little screws here. And that should be it. And then we'll plug it into the computer and see if it works. Just back thread it. I think it's going into metal actually, so don't need to worry. I didn't really check on the inside. There we go. Does it look similar to my one? It does. Except this one's got the USB 3 thing. Who knows if they're all connected? I didn't check properly, but this one is USB 2. You can see the difference in connections on the inside. So that should be it. Let's plug it in and find out. I'll also show you how it works with OBS so that you can capture HDMI sources. Pretty cool for like Raspberry Pi stuff. It means you could use OBS to monitor your Raspberry Pi without having to get another like computer monitor to do it. You can use it all on the same screen. Right, we're pretty much set up. I've got the HDMI capture card, the USB capture card thing here. I've not plugged it in yet. I don't know if it's going to work. I've also got an HDMI source, and this is a Raspberry Pi A+. It's got a full-size HDMI on it, which makes it a bit easier with the cable I've got to hand. It does have a memory card in it, but it's been such a long time since I've used it. I've no idea what's on it. It possibly has my old sort of analog radio code on it, potentially. Or it could be so far ago that it was the radio cube, who knows. Anyway, we'll get all this plugged in. Let's see if we hear a noise. I can't hear anything. Let's see, what audio thing is it on? Should have been on there. Let's see if we can find it. So if we go to here and click on video capture device, and then we'll create a new one because I already use one of these. So HDMI 2, and then we'll see if, yeah, we've got USB video there. That should be it. So if we select that, we've got some bars. This is good news so far. Let's get this Raspberry Pi plugged in. I have to plug it in all the way over here. Oh, that's the memory card out. There we go, that's plugged in and powered up, it seems. HDMI in. It might be in headerless mode, I'm not sure. If not, what I'll do is I'll plug the camera in and we'll just record the audio. There we go. If I just add that now, I'll enable the preview so that I can see what's going on. We've got some errors happening here. That is not a problem. As you can see, I didn't need to do anything, just plugged it in and it worked just fine. I've got my original one over here. So this is the one that I had and this is the one that I've fixed. So it was a fairly simple fix, but these things are brilliant. If you just want to monitor what's going on with your Raspberry Pi without having to have an extra monitor, you can bring it into something like this and play around with it. So that has been fixing a broken USB connector. All right, I'll speak to you all again soon.